Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the August 22nd, 2023 meeting of the Dover Area School Board. If you would please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Mrs. Allman, could we have the roll call?
Mrs. Britton. Here. Mr. Deschaux.
Here.
Mr. Emig.
Here.
Mrs. Herman.
Here.
Mrs. Meese. Here. Mr. Rawhauser.
Here.
Mrs. Whitmer.
Here.
Mr. Wolverton.
Here.
9 present.
Okay, first up we have our presentations. Comprehensive Plan, Dr. Houck.
Well, I have good news for everybody. The comprehensive plan is finished. Yay! I know, it's been a long time coming. So the process now is that I am going to kind of present this to you. There's nothing in here that you haven't already heard. It's all the same stuff, but I am going to walk you through the document just so you know what is in there. And then, of course, I will take any questions or any input that you have or any last-minute changes. It is not too late to change it. It is due October 31st, so I hope to submit it in October. But what I have to do before the board approves it is I have to make it ready for public review for 28 days. So once I present it to you today and solicit any input from you, Mr. Perkins will put it on our website with a link to my email so that the public can view it and provide me with any input that they have. So I will be bringing this back to you in September for approval. So you have between now and the voting meeting in September to read all 75 pages of this document, put it next to your nightstand. It's great bedtime reading. So I'm not going to read it all to you. There are actually 5 plans or reports that I will be submitting in October. And all 5 of them have been linked in the public content part of your board agenda so that the public can view them as well. And I'm not going to go through every single one of these plans. The first one is the academic standards and assessment. It's really pretty cut and dry, doesn't need a whole lot of explanation. In that particular document, it asks us to identify to what extent our curriculum is complete and aligned to standards. It asks us to evaluate our teacher evaluations, if there is any areas that we need to address, and there really wasn't. It asks us to list what assessments that we use and to examine our assessment practices. Very clear cut and pretty much what we've been doing. Nothing has changed. But that is there for you to read if you're so interested. The second plan that is required for us to submit is the Gifted Education Plan. That is our opportunity to articulate the process that we use to identify students for giftedness, how we determine whether or not they are eligible for gifted services, and then what services and what program we provide. That's in the Gifted Education Plan. I did not print those out for you. They're really just a couple of pages. You can just click on the link and read those. There's not a lot to those. They're pretty cut and dry. And then the third plan that is listed is the induction plan that asks us to indicate how we select our mentors, what criteria we use to select our mentors, and it asks us to ensure that we are including the appropriate topics in our induction plan. So, and we do. We have all of these topics in induction, and the topics are professionalism. In fact, Mr. Pratt just came the other day to do that with our new teachers. Assessment and progress monitoring, instructional practices, safe and supportive schools, standards and curriculum, technology, accommodations and adaptations for diverse learners, data-informed decision-making, materials and resources, classroom management, and parent involvement. We do all of those, so I feel very comfortable in submitting that induction plan that we do everything that we are required to do. So those plans are there for you to read. The two plans that I do want to go over with you is the big comprehensive plan and the professional development plan, because there are some things in there that are new for the district. So I provided you a paper copy of the comprehensive plan. I am not going to read this to you, but I do want to page through it to kind of show you what everything is and what it all means. So the very first page, on page 1, is our new mission and vision statement. Once this document is board approved, we will be changing all of our documents that include vision and mission to reflect this new mission and vision statement. Pages 2 and 3 are the educational value statements, and these are statements that describe the expectations that we have of each group to help the Dover Area School District successfully attain the mission and vision. So we have statements of expectation for students, staff, administration, parents, and the community. So I'll give you just a minute or two to look over those, and please interrupt if you have any questions.
I do have a question in regards to how you choose people outside of the staff to be a part of the steering
For
committee.
the steering committee, we looked at people that are part of our occupational advisory committee. I took some recommendations from staff members and administration for who to invite, and we just sent out invitations, and these are the people that responded positively. In terms of the board members that are listed on page 4, those are the board members that were part of the curriculum committee back when we divided up for committees, because I had them do some work to provide some input. We helped with the vision and mission statement. We looked at the data, and so that's why those board members are included as part of the steering committee. And that goes all the way to page 6. Starting on page 7, these are our established priorities. So what we did is we took a look at a boatload of data. I mean, tons of data. We made a list of the strengths and the challenges, which I will show you later in appendix something, A, B, or C, I'm not sure which one. And from that giant list of strengths and challenges, the steering committee determined what are our priorities. These priorities have already been shared with you, so they're not new, but these are the priorities that we determined. The first one is that we need a comprehensive literacy plan that will help guide our instruction. Along with that plan, we need professional development on structured literacy, which is the science of reading, and process writing at the elementary level. We don't do a lot of process writing, and the teachers have indicated they need some professional development in that. And then at the secondary level, middle and high school, we're going to focus on reading and writing across the curriculum. The second one is we need to talk about math. We're still on page 7, Amy. We need to talk about math. We don't have any intervention in place for math. That's not unusual because elementary schools tend to focus on literacy. So we're going to develop some type of intervention for kids to get some extra help in math, and we need to start having some professional development and collaboration around math. The third one is that we have to commit to high standards of teaching and learning. We discovered that our participation in advanced coursework is lower than the state average. And so we need to increase the number of students who are enrolling in advanced placement classes, dual enrollment classes, college and the high school classes, and CTE credential programs. So we're going to work towards making a campaign, so to speak, where we're going to educate parents in what opportunities we offer and try to convince our kids to enroll in some more rigorous courses.
I just have I have a quick.
Absolutely.
The AP versus the college in the classroom, or like the English 101, I think is what it is in the high school currently.
Yeah.
Are they similar in rigor, or are they, I mean, what's the difference?
That's a philosophical question and almost an opinion question. In my prior life, my superintendent did not feel that college and the high school was as rigorous as AP. There are a lot of schools that will accept AP courses as credit. They may not accept the college and the high school. because the college and the high school is offered by a college. So HAC will offer the course here at Dover. And so you get HAC credits. That may transfer into another college, it may not transfer, but the AP is a little bit more widely accepted, I believe.
So there's not a guarantee that that college in the classroom will be as widely accepted as what the AP would be?
What's interesting
sorry if
is,
I'm, like, going off on
please,
a-
please. What's interesting is the college and the high school, you're guaranteed credits.
Right.
You're guaranteed the HAC credits. With AP, you're not guaranteed credits because you have to pass the exam
Right.
to get the credits.
And one of the things I struggle with as a parent is I've got a child who has taken AP courses the past 3 years and we've paid $65 for every single course that we take for the exam.
Right.
And, they end up getting like a 3, which doesn't count for much, if anything. So basically that $65, which could be a lot for families who are
Right.
taking these classes, versus the English in the classroom, say, or,
College in the high school.
classroom, or, where you're paying, I think, a little more, but you're guaranteed
Correct.
the credit. So I just wonder why, or maybe if we should look at offering more of those types of classes, or what would be the benefit, maybe a cost-benefit analysis between the two, the AP versus that, because as a parent, I would rather pay $40 more and guarantee that I'm getting college credit as opposed to the $65 and be like, well, it's a crapshoot whether we get the credit for it or not.
Well, and it really depends on the school, because some schools do accept 3s, and some don't. Some you need a 4 or a 5. And again, depending upon the school, some school will accept the HAC transfer credit, others will not. So that really has to be a decision that's made by the individual and the family in terms of what schools are they planning on going to. If you're going to an elite college, they're going to want to see the APs. They're not going to be as impressed with a college and the high school course as they would be if you get a 4 or a 5 in an AP course. If you're not planning on trying to go to Yale or Brown or Harvard, then maybe the college and the high school might be a better bet if you want to go to Millersville or Shippensburg or something like that. So I think we need to offer both. I don't know that one is better than the other. It really depends on the goals of the student.
Great, thanks.
So with the AP courses, are we going to do something, because I know like with my daughter alone, that she wasn't able to do calculus AP last year because there wasn't enough people for the class.
Mm-hmm.
So are we going to do something to allow students who want to actually do it, maybe make the class size for them smaller, or how are we going to adjust to that? 'Cause
Yep.
that's kind of important.
And that's what this goal is really all about. It's about increasing the enrollment. Because you really can't offer it to 1 or 2 kids because you need to have a collaboration. I've run AP with 5, even 4, but not 1 or 2. So if this goal works, we will have more kids who want to take the AP course, and then we'll be able to offer it.
Okay.
So that's the whole goal. And we're really going to focus on the parents too, because they're the ones that kind of get it. And they're the ones that even the CTE program, parents understand you can make a really good living in these fields, and they might start encouraging their kids. That's what I found success with when I was a high school principal. It wasn't so much talking to the kids as it was talking to the parents that really helped with that. And then the last priority is that we need a guaranteed and viable curriculum. Our curriculum prior to this year was really sporadic. We had some good pieces of curriculum, but there are courses that were missing. There were subjects that were missing. We've talked about that, and we spent this whole year writing curriculum. You've been approving it, and we're going to continue to do that work. So the next section starts on page 8. So those are our priorities. And the next section, pages 8 through 15, is the actual action plan. If you take a look at the measurable goals statement, it says all DASD schools will aim to meet the PDE PSSA Keystone interim target for English language arts. So here's what that means. PDE has set a goal that every school, every grade, every subject will get to 81.1. I don't know why the 0.1, but that's what it is. 81.1% proficiency by the year 2033. That's their goal. And so what they have done for every school, every grade, every subject, is they've given you an interim target each year. So they're asking you to hit that target to get from where you are now to 81.1%. So when I say that we're going to aim to meet that interim target, that's what we're talking about. It's different for every grade, it's different for every building, it's different for every subject, because it takes, if you're at 50% now and you need to get to 81, they divided that 30% into those years, and you have to get to that target of proficiency every year. So that's the measurable goal that we have. The
Are there
action,
ramifications from the state if you don't hit those targeted goals?
well, if you recall back in No Child Left Behind, the goal was 100%. That never happened. They changed the goal. That's what I have seen happen through the years. No, I have yet to hear of any ramifications, because the likelihood of every school, every grade hitting 81% is pretty slim.
Although there are really poorly failing schools, that probably doesn't make a lot of sense. Badly failing schools, the state takes over.
Correct.
So that does happen.
Yes.
We're nowhere near that.
No.
It's rare.
Thank you.
So the action steps are, okay, well, what are we going to do to get to that goal? So for the early literacy goals, we're going to start by conducting walkthroughs and observations to make sure that the science of reading and structured literacy is being taught. We're going to start by making sure all of our reading specialists and instructional aides are trained in the science of reading, and then we're going to make sure that all of the teachers are trained in the science of reading. And then once we train them, walkthroughs and observations, the principals will ensure that they're actually doing those things in the classroom. An anticipated outcome is that the walkthroughs will document a shift in instructional practices that are aligned with the science of reading. And then, of course, we would like that our benchmark, diagnostic, and PSSA scores will show an increase in the number of students that are scoring proficient. So that's our ultimate goal there. And then we had to indicate, well, how are you going to monitor that? Again, the best way to monitor it is through walkthroughs and observations. I want to remind you that the principals are required to do 5 walkthroughs a week to make sure that they're seeing what they need to see in instructional practices in the classroom, and to be able to give teachers timely feedback on their practice. That's the best way for a teacher to improve their practice, is to get timely feedback. So we have this action plan for every one of our goals. On page 10, the goal is for process writing. Again, we're aiming to meet the interim target for English language arts. I am very happy that the core program that we are piloting has a really strong writing component that includes process writing. That's going to be very helpful for teachers. We're going to make sure they get the professional development in process writing that we need. And then our goal is that every child is producing writing that goes through the writing process. I would like teachers to get together and analyze those writings that are coming from the kids, and to see what are our strengths and what are our challenges. And on page 11, for the secondary, middle, and high school, we're talking about reading and writing across the curriculum. You all know that you don't read a science text the same way you read a poem. You don't read a novel the same way that you're going to read a history text about World War II. The only person that can teach a kid how to read science text is a science teacher. The only person who can teach a kid how to write like a historian is a history teacher. So we're going to train our teachers to use those reading and writing strategies in their own classrooms, in their own discipline. It can't just be the English teachers. So that's what reading and writing across the curriculum means. How do you teach your kids to read and write in your subject area? So, of course, we'll do all of the necessary professional development, and we're going to collect writing samples from kids and analyze those. On page 12, that's where we have our high standards and expectations, where we want to increase enrollment in all of those, in AP, in dual enrollment, in college and the high school, and in CTE. Those CTE credentials count as rigorous courses of study. So we've already started doing this. Mrs. Spacek has done a great job with it, developing communication materials for parents and students to be aware of the variety of options that they have. PBOS gives us projections for individual students. How likely are they to be successful? How likely are they to score a 5, a 4, or a 3 in an AP exam? So we're going to talk to those kids, and we're going to start at the middle school. talking to those kids about the opportunities they have at the high school.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. Me.
Yes.
Can we go back to the science? I'm sorry, the reading across the curriculum?
Yes.
When you mentioned about science and professional development for these teachers to help their kids do some, I guess you're talking about reading the text.
Yes.
They have to teach how to read the text, and
Well,
then they have to teach some writing components,
yes.
like they would learn in a language class or English class.
So again, if you were reading, so like let's take a social studies text. Social studies text could be written in chronological order. That's how the text is written. This happened first, then this happened, then this happened. Sometimes it's more a cause and effect because these things happened, then this happened. Well, we need kids to identify how is this text written and how do I read it. Vocabulary is a huge piece of that, especially with science texts. You can have a kid who could read a novel in a day, but you put a chemistry text in front of them, and they're like, you can't read it the same way. So it's incumbent upon that teacher to say, this is how you read this science text. These are the skills that are required. This is what this means. This is what that means.
So it might be like an introduction to the text in the beginning of the school year, but not a whole year-long process.
It's what so our social studies teachers and science teacher ask kids to read all the time. But rather than saying, I want you to read this, and then we're going to talk about it, it's, here's how I want you to read this. Here's what I want you to look for. Here are some strategies to read it. Now we're going to talk about it.
So every class they might say, this is what to look for, this is what I want.
Exactly.
And then what's the, like, for instance, a science teacher, how would they do the writing, like, part of it?
So again, writing a science essay is different than writing an essay about a piece of literature. What do I want it to look like? What should be in an essay about science? What are the pieces? Is it main idea detail? Is it cause and effect? How do you structure that? Because it's different. An English teacher can't teach them how to write a science essay because they're not the same skills. So that's what the social studies teacher will do. They're not going to just say, I want you to write an essay. They're going to model it. Here's how I want the essay to be written. Here are the things that it should include. Here's what it should look like. And so they teach that.
Thank you.
On page 13 is the guaranteed and viable curriculum. We are well on our way. We're just going to continue doing what we've been doing, where we're going to continue to write curriculum. This time, for this year, I am going to be looking for volunteers that will continue the work that we started as a whole faculty in 22-23. So my goal is that we'll have a curriculum that a new teacher can pick up, and they're going to know exactly what they're supposed to teach. And a parent can go onto our website and look at a course and know exactly what's going to be taught. That's my goal for the curriculum. And page 15 is math intervention. So we're starting kind of from ground zero. We're going to use our interventionists at the middle school, at the elementary level, to design some pull-out for kids that are struggling in math, or even push in for kids that are struggling in math, to help them to identify those, to fill the gaps that they have in math. So we need something to help kids who are struggling in math that we don't currently have.
Isn't that Study Island? Is that part of that
It
solution?
is, but that's not with a person. Like Study Island is sort of, it kind of gives you an assessment, and then the teacher does that small group. But in reading, we do that too. But we also have those kids that are really behind. They get pulled out with a reading specialist or the interventionist to get some extra. We don't do that for math. So we're going to start trying to do that with math as well. We're really just talking about those kids that are really struggling, that are behind, to try to get them caught up. Okay. That is the bulk of the comprehensive plan. The rest of it just gets really repetitive. So pages 17 to 26, you're going to see the same exact wording. That's just, okay, so here are your goals. What is the exact professional development that you're going to be doing? And it really is just repetition. There's nothing in these next sections that we didn't already just talk about. So we're going to ensure that all of our reading specialists are trained in the science of reading. Page 18, we're going to make sure the teachers are supported in the science of reading. Page 19, we're going to have administrators do walkthroughs, stuff we've already talked about. So this is where the document gets very repetitive. For writing, page 20, teachers will pilot a writing program. Page 21, teachers will integrate process writing into daily instruction. So it just kind of breaks up the professional development step by step. The next section starts on page 27, and it asks, okay, of those goals in the comprehensive plan, which of those are going to require you to develop some type of communications? And the goal of high expectations is the part that's going to require communication. We're going to have to create materials. We're going to have to hold parent nights to inform our parents about the opportunities for AP, dual enrollment, and all of those things. So pages 27 through 30 basically talks about how are we going to develop communication materials. We're going to meet with students. We're going to meet with parents. We're going to try to recruit kids to take those higher level courses. And page 31 is just the approvals, and that's where once the board has approved it, then Dr. Cartwright will sign it, and then we send it off. The rest of the document is the addendum. So addendum A, I mentioned that we had a whole long list of strengths and challenges. This is the list of strengths and challenges that the steering committee identified, and this is what we used to create our goals. A lot of these can be addressed by a guaranteed and viable curriculum. If we improve math intervention, we're going to address a lot of these concerns. So that's just the list of strengths that we determined and the list of concerns that we have. And that goes all the way through to page 38. Page 39 it takes all of those action plans that we had on separate pages and puts them all in one place. So that's, again, repetition. They just put it into one section. Addendum B is our action plan, which we've already talked about. So page 39 is the action plan for early literacy and the science of reading. Page 43 is the action plan for process writing, which is exactly the same as was in the bigger part of the document. Page 46, you'll see the action plan for reading and writing across the curriculum and the action plan for high standards and expectations. Page 49 is the guaranteed and viable curriculum action plan. They just put it all in one place in an addendum. And page 53 is where you see the math intervention. The next section starts on page 56, which is the professional development plan. And that is, again, taking all of the professional development pieces and putting them into one section. So if somebody was really interested in the professional development, they could just go to this section. It's a little bit more specific regarding when and how. So we said we were going to train them in process writing. Well, how are we going to train them and when? And that's what this part of the document says, which ends on page 67. Again, the communication piece, that's all in one place on page 69. It's the same words, the same actions. And the last piece on page 74 is, okay, now that we have this plan, how are we communicating it to everybody else? And the first thing we're doing right now, it says for August 2023 that there's a presentation of the comprehensive plan. After that, we have a public review of the comprehensive plan, which After getting some input from you, I will have Mr. Perkins post that tomorrow, if possible. We'll keep it up on our website through the school board meeting, the voting meeting in September for public review. And then in September, that's when I'm going to ask you to approve this comprehensive plan and the state required reports. And then throughout the year, next year, I will be updating you on our progress. And actually, for the next 3 years, I will be updating. Lord willing, I'm still here. I will be updating you on the progress of the comprehensive plan.
So I have a question.
Yes.
When it comes to the evidence of learning section, and you list all the different ways that they're going to, I guess, assess.
Can you tell me
or-
a page number?
I mean, just all the 60s. Under the Danielson framework
Yes.
component.
Yes.
So what struck me was there was nothing that mentioned like feedback from parents. So what are we doing with our students as far as the struggling ones, or even just in general, and like regular, consistent communication, like teacher to parent? I mean, do they have, like the homework assignment things that they take home and parents look over things
Sure.
and
Well,
sign off? Or
Keep
do
in
they do
mind,
that?
there's millions of things that we do that are not written in this plan, right?
That's why I figured, but I'm
So,
just kind of curious.
Yeah, I mean, parent communication, of course, is huge, and there are lots of things that we do with parent conferences, and we have expectations for teachers to keep their parents informed. I don't want you to think that just because it's not in this plan that we're not doing it or we're not thinking about it. But you can't make a document that's 500 pages long. You have to kind of hit those priorities. So, certainly our goal is always to increase parental involvement. Just because it's not in the plan doesn't mean that's not something that we're using as a goal or that we're trying to accomplish. Does that answer your question or no? Did you want something more specific?
Well, I kind of figured that that's something that's going on, but I guess my question is what is the process in place that the district or each building has laid out maybe for teachers to communicate with parents other than parent-teacher night? I mean, what are they expected to do if they notice their kid is falling behind, if their student is falling behind in math and they want to reach out to mom, dad? Do they only email? Do they make phone calls? Like, is it up to the teacher? Is it up to the principal? Is it up to the district? Like, how do we?
It's up to the teacher and the parent, because quite frankly, there are some parents who would prefer email. And there are some parents who prefer phone calls. I recall having several parents who said, I don't answer my phone. If I don't recognize the number, or emailing me, I'm sitting at my computer all day long. Send me an email, I'm going to see it right away. There are others that say, I hardly ever check my email. Please make that call. I think especially at the elementary level, most of the elementary teachers will ask their parents, what's the best way to contact you? That's usually part of back to school. It's usually part of the materials that they send out. And so that really is, we're not going to make a policy that says you must call. You really
Right.
have to do what the parent wants you to do and how is best to communicate with them.
Like, okay, so I feel like I remember at one point in the school system, there was like, say, a homework workbook. I don't know why. I'm picturing it, and it was like a spiral bound type of thing. Homework got written down by the kids for each subject. They take that home, mom, dad.
Your
you know,
agenda? Yeah, I think we
agenda.
called it an agenda, yeah.
So do we do that still?
It depends on the teacher. Now, we have, what we have now that we didn't have then was Schoology, that a parent can log right into and see exactly what the assignment is. So we don't necessarily need an agenda anymore, but I think every teacher kind of does that differently.
Yeah.
I can say from personal experience, over the past few years, we've done either through Schoology or email, or the teachers send out the good old-fashioned papers that say, it's a syllabus, it's an introduction, and it says, how would you like to be communicated with? And you can write down your email, like, please contact me via email only. I'm available, basically, like
Right.
Dr. Houck said, you can pick how you would like to be communicated with. I've never had an issue with any of the teachers not communicating with me or giving me the opportunity to provide how I would like to be communicated with.
Certainly students that are pulled out for reading support, those parents are always contacted, and we inform them, here's what we plan to do. So we always inform the parents before we pull kids out of classrooms. And they're a part of that conversation, and they're a part of that decision.
I guess my bottom line is, so if we start implementing the new ALA and new math programs, and we want to know, if parents who are sitting down with their kids to help them with homework, or, they're reading with them or whatnot, would they notice the difference? And maybe to get that feedback, and some type of form of a consistent communication between teachers and parents that we could collect. Because that's why I'm saying I don't see it on here, like any parental input on how things are going on that, home side of it.
Right.
That might be helpful for us to glean. So really, that was just why
I think I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get it.
Any other questions for Dr. Hout?
I do have one more thing to show you, though.
Okay.
That's important I show you.
Yep.
Amy, could you pull up the professional development plan? The first 15 pages of this professional development plan are a duplicate of what you already looked at. It pulled from the comprehensive plan all the professional development pieces and put it in here. The only thing that's different, and I've already talked to you about this, is on page 15. If you recall, in March or April, I told you that, page 16, sorry, Amy, that there were some new requirements, and that's why the comprehensive plan due date was extended to October. I shared with you what those were. I gave you a copy of the competencies, and I wanted you to see what I wrote into those. The first one, if you recall, was culturally relevant and sustaining education. That's the one where there are school districts, and Mr. Pratt might know more about this than I do, school district in eastern Pennsylvania that had filed a lawsuit against culturally relevant and sustaining education. So, however, it is still required in this comprehensive plan, so I wanted you to see what I wrote. And what I wrote is that we will provide all learners with equitable and differentiated opportunities to learn and succeed, with a focus on students with disabilities, students living in poverty, and English language learners. Those are the three populations of kids that we have here in this district that genuinely have a real barrier to learning. I mean, it's really hard to learn when you don't know the language, right? Where students with disabilities need accommodations. They need teachers to make special efforts to provide them with the accommodations that they need, as well as students living in poverty. So the evidence will be that they'll get trained. So I wanted you to see exactly what I wrote for culturally relevant and sustaining education. The second one that was required was professional ethics. We've already been doing that every year. We either create a video that teachers are required to watch that reviews the Code of Professional Practice and Conduct for Educators, the Code of Professional Ethics, and board policies. Actually, a lot of that is reflected in our board policies. So they either have to watch a not so exciting video on all of those, or I give them a presentation that's self-guided that they have to work through, and they do sign off that they have participated in that every year. So that's another requirement. Trauma-informed care is another state required, that we are required to deliver 1 hour of professional development on trauma-informed care every year. And so we will talk to our teachers about practices for school climate, classroom instruction, and lesson design for trauma-informed for students who have suffered trauma. And then the next section is just where I have to say, yes, I did everything that you asked me to do. And then the final page that I want you to see before we end is page 22. Amy, if you could, go back one page. Yeah, this one. So this is the list of things that I was required to put into the professional development plan. Language and literacy acquisition for all students. Most of my comprehensive plan is that. Teaching diverse learners in inclusive settings, that takes care of their students with disabilities and English language learners. At least an hour of trauma-informed care, professional ethics, culturally relevant and sustaining education, and structured literacy. And so you can see that I did add everything that I was required to add, and those were new for this year. And that's why I was able to turn this in October and not in May, or March, which was the original deadline. Okay, that's it.
Okay. Any other questions for Dr. Hauk? I just had two things. First, I wanted to thank you for all of your work on this. I think you've done an outstanding job with it. I know it took a lot of time and energy. There's a lot of work here, and it's probably, this time has been the most clearly explained to me that I've had in my 9 years on the board. So I appreciate everything you've done with this. I also wanted to publicly thank everybody who served on the steering committee. I know there was a lot of work on their part, a lot of energy and time spent on their activities as well to contribute to this. I want to thank them for their energies as well. So thank you.
Thank you. So I will be posting this on the website tomorrow for public review.
Dr. Hauk, I have a question. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
This professional development piece seems really important. Is there room for all of this professional development for our teachers?
It's going to be tough. I don't think that we don't have a lot of professional development time. We have 3 days, 4 days, 4 days in the school year. So what we're going to have to do is kind of split up our faculty, so to speak, where some of them will get the training in the math and then kind of get their colleagues caught up. Some of them will get trained they'll become kind of experts in all of those.
Like a train the trainer kind of thing?
Exactly,
Okay.
a train the trainer. The other thing that we want to keep in mind is this is a 3-year plan, but it doesn't mean that we have to have everything done. I'm going to do this again in 3 years, and I suspect that some of these are going to carry over into the next plan too. We're going to try to get it all done, of course, but some of these are really long-term goals, and they're going to take time. But this is the start. At least we have a target to aim towards. And if we don't get there in 3 years, then we're going to write it into the next plan to get there.
Now, what resources do you use for that professional development training? Is it in person? Is it web-based?
It's a variety.
Have you chosen those resources yet, or?
For some, I'm working with the IU for math and for the science of reading. They are coming this year to deliver that professional development. Dr. Geyer and her team will help with the students with learning disabilities. They're going to deliver some of that professional development.
Okay.
We have our ESL teachers who will help with students that are English language learners. So we have talent right here in our building, in our buildings, that can help us with that. So they're going to come from a variety of different places.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, this brings us to our first public comment period. It is a 30-minute period for 3 minutes per speaker. If you have anything you would like to make a comment on the agenda, please come to the podium and state your name and address for the record.
I'm not sure if this is on the agenda for tonight or not. My name is Maria Wirtz, AKA Nana. I live at 3052 Jody Lane. And I have a couple things I'd like to discuss. The first one is something that we spoke about a few months ago, which was class sizes. It was brought to my attention by several families at Live Elementary School when I was at the grocery store and told, "Do you know what's going on at the school?" And I'm like, "No, I do not. What's going on?" Well, they have way over 50 kids in 4th grade and only 2 teachers. Kind of looked at him, didn't say anything. The numbers as of 4 o'clock tonight through Skywards is 53 students there. The thing I am having a problem with is PA Title 22 Code 405.43 states, class size and teacher ratio should only be 17 per 1 teacher. And I know it's a code. When it also says when enrollment exceeds 20 students, it should be divided into 2 classes to make no class over 20 kids. Unless you've been hiding under a rock, we all know there's a teacher shortage. What I would like to know, if at all possible, is can we get aides in these classrooms that have over 25 kids? Does a teacher aide have to have the same schooling that a teacher has, the same accreditations that a teacher has? Because if not, I think that would be something that this board should look at. I think it might be easier to hire aides for a building than it might be to hire teachers for a building, especially with the teacher shortage. It's 10 kids over what is supposed to be there. That doesn't sound like a lot, but you're talking about fourth graders. Fourth graders are the ones going through the hormone changes, they're going through the attitudes, and when you have one teacher trying to control those kids, the teacher's it's a losing battle. I'm sorry, it is, and I know that. I don't know if you guys can do it. It's just a suggestion, but I think it's something you guys need to look into. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Nana. I would suggest, Nana, if you wanted to, maybe connect with Dr. Cartwright. She can talk to you after the meeting at some point about class size and how the numbers fluctuate day to day to day, and the aides and all that. So.
I know. These are as of 4 o'clock this
Yeah.
afternoon through Skyway.
Yep, perfect. So I'd suggest talking to her, and she can give you some more background on the aid situation, all that too. So, thank you. Anybody else? Okay. With that, we'll move into Board President's communication. We did have an executive session prior to tonight's meeting to discuss some legal and personnel matters. With that, we'll move into our consent agenda. So at this time, I'll entertain a motion to approve all items listed under the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Dr. Cartwright, would you like to hit the highlights?
I would. Thank you, Mr. President. The items that I will highlight for you this evening include the high school tech team transition, and Mrs. Helwig, our high school librarian, presented to you about that with students just 2 weeks ago, so hopefully you remember that. And that's just a transfer. And then the WellSpan Sports Medicine and Physician Services Agreement that Mrs. Weaver spoke with you about 2 weeks ago. We are required to have a physician's oversight of our athletic trainer, or as needed, our PRN trainer, and a physician's presence at our home varsity football games. And we do have our first football game, home football game, this Friday evening. So we'd really like to get that approved. You will see a field trip for one student. We are lucky enough to have a Skills USA state officer, one of our students, I believe she is a senior this year, is a new state officer, and this leadership conference is required of state officers. So we would like to send her to Maine for that conference. And that is in our budget and will be paid with Perkins funding, I believe. I'm looking at my notes and not the agenda, but that should say so on the agenda. And then the CTE agreement with Northeastern School District, that is for 2 Northeastern students to continue taking CTE classes at Dover, and this started last year. And finally, I'll highlight the Delta T group rates, and this is for special education staff because we are often short for special education paras and PCAs, and if needed, we sometimes use this Delta T group. And I would be happy to entertain any other questions about other items.
I have a question in regards to the last item, the Delta T group. So how do they get their qualifications? Are they right there with our people, or?
Mrs. Jacoby can talk about that.
Yes, their qualifications are very similar. They're just working for a temp agency. Dr. Geyer interviews all candidates before we would bring them on to make sure they align with the type of employees that we would hire. They have all of their clearances. We receive their resume, all of the same things that we would have. It's just another avenue for us to get staff when we need it. So we try not to use it, but we do sometimes have holes that we can't fill here, and they're able just to provide us another source of staff.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, hearing none, Mrs. Almond?
Motion carries 9-0.
Okay, moving on, York Adams Academy, Mr. Emig.
We were on a hiatus over the summer. Our first meeting will take place next Tuesday evening.
Okay. Mrs. Meese, York County School of Technology.
We weren't on a hiatus, but there wasn't much to cover, so just some hirings. Our next meeting is Thursday.
Okay. Dr. Cartwright, LIU, Special Ed.
No report this evening.
Mr. Rawhauser, Legislative.
According to Seth Rowe, when he was at the store the other day, I asked him, he said the budget is still in work in progress.
Thank you. Mrs. Herman, Dover Industrial Development Committee.
There was no meeting last month, and our next meeting is tomorrow night.
Mrs. Britton, PSBA.
Nothing new to report, just that there is an upcoming PSBA conference in October, and I believe it was typically Hershey. I think I saw this year it may be at Kalahari Resort this year. I think it's the second weekend in October.
Okay. Superintendent's report, Dr. Cartwright.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have 3 pages of celebrations because there was no superintendent's report in June and July. So I'm going to make sure there is one next summer because this is a lot. But it is a lot of good celebrations. First and foremost, today was the first day of school and served as an orientation for kindergartners and 6th, 9th, and 12th graders, the major transition years. All the rest of our students will be in school tomorrow, and we look forward to a wonderful 23-24 school year. Speaking of the beginning of the school year, last week, as Mr. Emig mentioned earlier, we had our opening day, the first day for professional staff members to return, and we do invite all of our staff members on that day, and we invited bus drivers this year as well, and we serve breakfast, and then we have some opening remarks, and then teachers go to their buildings for professional development and faculty meetings. This year, we had 8 of our brave and phenomenal students speak to our staff as keynote speakers, and I'll just list their names. They were selected by their principals, and they included students 1st through 12th grades. We had a 1st grader, a 2nd grader, 2 3rd graders, a 4th grader, a 5th grader, 8th grader, and 12th grader. I think I covered that all. Eloise Shimola, Theodore Shimola, and those 2 are 1st and 2nd graders, and they tag teamed, and they were adorable. Chelsea Vasquez, Dean Lanius Wernig, Camilla Serrano, Wyatt Markle, Gage Mailhorn, and Mary Alice Craig. I won't say they were all adorable because that might be not very much of a compliment for some of the older kids, but they were fabulous, and oh my gosh, it was the best thing ever. And like I mentioned, we did not celebrate some achievements from earlier this summer, so I'm going to go through some of those. And first and foremost there, I want to congratulate and thank those who retired at the end of the 22-23 school year and dedicated a combined total of 344 years to Dover Area School District. We wish them all the best in their next chapter of their lives, and I will list their names and their years. Melissa Chapman was at Dover Elementary for 22 years in the district. Maureen Serco was a reading specialist at Libe, and she was in the district for 29 years. Julie Zapp was a special education teacher for 11 years. Pam Eisenhower was a custodian at the high school and was in the district for 18 years. Janice Kaler was a secretary at the high school for 4 years. Racine Kushner was a custodian at North Salem for 15 years. Dave Langford, he was the chief maintenance, he was the plumber, he was here for 30 years. Deanne Lehman was here for 32 years, 4th grade teacher. Karen Mayer was a life skills paraprofessional at the high school for 15 years. Brad Neal was a social studies teacher at the high school for 31 years. Bonnie Robliere was a 3rd grade teacher at North Salem for 35 years.
Sherry Rogers was Accounts Payable Coordinator for 24 years. Frank Spence was an art teacher at the elementary level for 24 years. Cheryl Gutschall was a 5th grade teacher for 28 years. And Suzanne Trimble, was a learning support paraprofessional for 26 years. We certainly wish them all the best and thank them for their service. The learning, activities, and excitement did not stop with the last day of the school year. The Dover FFA chapter attended FFA Activities Week at Penn State University Park Campus, June 13 through 15, with 21 students, and I have a lot of awards to read to you. Jacqueline Bogus and Kaysen Walker each attended 5 leadership workshops hosted by a current national FFA officer, the national officer candidate from Pennsylvania, and visiting state FFA officers from other states. Brianna Donay and Jeremy Koo both served as chapter delegates. They joined others to debate 2 of the 5 items selected for state convention this year. Their work will go to the Pennsylvania FFA Board of Directors in the coming year. Brianna chaired her committee and presented the report on stage to the entire convention during the last session. John Croft was one of the 33 students interviewing for the 7 available Pennsylvania FFA state officer positions. Though he was not selected, he represented Dover well through all of his interview rounds. In agronomy, Travis Smith placed 8th out of 24. In nursery and landscape management, Isabella Sims placed 5th, Thomas Barr placed 6th, Samantha Perkins placed 7th, and Lily Evans placed 8th out of 16. This team placed 2nd and has earned a spot at the Eastern States Exposition, what they call the Big E, in Massachusetts this fall, which I think you approved 2 weeks ago. In small gas engines, Ryan Baldwin placed 17th and Isaiah McGee placed 19th out of 34. They also placed 9th as a team. In veterinary skills, Jace Corbin placed 6th, Dalton Richter placed 14th, Willow Smith placed 26th, and Jordan Hennessy placed 27th. This team placed 3rd. Dalton Brown also earned 70th in this event out of 105. In wildlife, Lindsay Knobb was 33rd, Ella Snellbaker was 36th, Clayton Grimm was 49th, and Jordan Snellbaker was 73rd out of 93. In chapter scrapbook, completed by historian Brianna Donay, earned 20th out of 35, and the national chapter award application, completed by Vice President Samantha Perkins and student advisor Faith Sterner, was awarded 7th place. This is the first time in at least 15 years that the chapter has submitted this application. The final exciting piece of news was the release of the Pennsylvania FFA program roster numbers. Dover is now the 4th largest Ag/FFA program in the state with 278 students involved. We follow Cumberland Valley at 279 by only 1, Midwest at 280, WB Saul, an agricultural high school in Philadelphia, with 506. Congratulations also to 2 Dover graduates who qualified for their American FFA degree and will receive this honor at the National FFA Convention in Indianapolis in November. Grace Benton, class of 22, and Caleb Staples, class of 21, both completed their applications last spring and have been going through the approval process the last several months. The National FFA Board meeting to approve the list this month was the final step. This month was June. I'm sorry, I didn't correct that. The American FFA degree is the highest honor that can be earned by an FFA member and can only be awarded by National FFA. Congratulations to the boys tennis team and the boys varsity lacrosse team for being selected as recipients of the 2023 Spring YAIAA Sportsmanship Award. Coaches from the YAIAA League Division vote to recognize the opposing team that exemplifies the spirit of sportsmanship during each contest throughout the season. Dover is proud of our student athletes for this remarkable recognition. Congratulations to Kelly Renard, Director of Student Nutrition Services. Kelly applied for and has been awarded the Healthy Meals Incentives Grant for small and/or rural school food authorities. The United States Department of Agriculture Food and Nutrition Service, Action for Healthy Kids, in partnership with Rocky Mountain Center for Health and Education and the Chief Ann Foundation, congratulate Kelly on her successful application and commend her commitment to improving the nutritional quality of our school meals. As an awardee, Dover Area School District will receive a grant amount of $149,980 to support the implementation of our project, which includes much-needed replacement equipment in the middle school kitchen, a walk-in cooler, pass-through warmers, pass-through cooler, mobile serving lines, and milk coolers, and a 40-gallon tilt skillet ice machine robot coupe food processor. I don't have a clue what that is, but Kelly could tell you. The period of performance for this grant will be from August 1st, 2023 through June 30th, 2025. The funds provided under this grant must be used to overcome challenges in improving the nutritional quality of our schools' meals as proposed in our application. Congratulations to Dr. Kathy Geyer, Director of Exceptional Children, for successfully defending her doctoral dissertation on July 17th. Dr. Geyer. As mentioned earlier, our first home football game is this Friday at 7 p.m. I hope many of you can make it. And another announcement for the Dover Eagle Foundation. They are hosting again an annual bingo game on September 17th, that is a Sunday, at 2 p.m. at the Dover Community Center. We'd like to acknowledge and thank Wise Markets for donating cookies and brownies for Libe Elementary's opening day faculty meeting and a $25 gift card for teacher appreciation items, as well as Maple Donuts for donating 7 dozen donuts for a professional development day last week. And last but not least, tonight we get to honor 3 of our board members, unpaid volunteers, for their years of dedication to the Dover Area School District. Thank you to Mrs. Brinton, Mr. Deschaux, and Mrs. Herman for 8 years each of service. That concludes my report.
It's a shame there's nothing going on in the district over the summer. So, thank you, Kelly. Any questions for Kelly? Okay, with that, we will move on to our discussion items for tonight. The first item is our budget to actual report as of July 31st, 23. Mrs. Weaver.
Yeah, it was something that I had talked about. I did at Dallastown, and I wanted to bring it here, so I thought I would start with the new fiscal year. It is very similar to the treasurer's report. It's just in a different presentation. So the treasurer's report is based mostly on, it's an item, as opposed to the actual PDE structure account, how we do the budget. It's got the same idea. It's an in and out of cash, but it also, what I did was, if I saw some variances that I saw were significant, a swing year to year, I added notation for the revenue and expense. I did put it in the executive comments for the board. If the board would like, I can put it in public comment as well. I just wasn't sure if anyone had had a chance to look at it and what their thoughts were, if they found it was beneficial.
I like it a lot.
Good. I'm glad. I'm going to do it with food service as well. It's just because school hasn't started, there's nothing there to talk about.
I mean, I see we're over by a teens, but it looks like it's from the construction line
Yep.
item. Is
Yes.
that the roof?
Yes,
The
yes.
roof replacements?
Yes, and what we're going to see too is when I built the budget for this year, I didn't realize they would be able to move so fast on the roof. So a lot of that, so what you'll see when I go to do the budget to actuals and kind of give you the quarterly updates, you'll see that it's going to be slightly off in the expense and the revenue side because of the fact that they were able to expedite it faster than I anticipated. So it's just a wash, but it will be something I'll point out.
Okay. Yeah, that's really good.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
Anybody else for Mrs. Weaver? I agree. It's a very nice report, very helpful.
Thank you.
So thank you. Okay, next item is our board meeting times. Some discussion here for September through December. Over the summer, we did move these meetings up to a 6:00 p.m. start time, and we'd just like to gauge the interest of the board as to whether or not you'd like to continue with the 6:00 time through December until the new board is seated in December, or if you would like to return to our later start times of 7:00 for the voting meetings and 6:00 for the planning meetings. What are your thoughts at this point?
6 o'clock's fine with me.
I'd prefer to keep it 6 o'clock.
6 o'clock for me also.
6 good? All right, we'll stick with 6:00 then going forward. Okay, that brings us to our final public comment period. Again, it's a 30-minute period for speakers, 2 minutes per speaker at this time. So again, state your name and address for the record.
Carl Rischel, 3130 Barley Circle. I paid my school taxes for the year. I pray that you will use them wisely to educate our children.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Rischel. Okay. Anybody else? Okay, hearing none, any other miscellaneous comments or observations from our board members tonight?
I have a question in regards to the nutritional school program project. I don't remember the exact terminology. So are we gauging the kids' interest in it and how much maybe is getting eaten versus what's getting tossed?
Honestly, it's not quite built that way. It's really just to assist schools in providing healthier meals for students and more varieties, especially with the equipment piece, because the equipment in the middle school is old, and there's a lot of nuances to it. So I'm sure that Kelly's going to be adding new things to the menu, which we can gauge if the kids are more, interested in eating them. But it really is an equipment grant. There's not a whole lot of verbiage. It's going to be about whether the kids liked the chicken tacos better in the grill. You know what I mean? It's not going to be quite like that.
I understand the grant and what that was used for, but I thought last year there was some new menu items introduced to the students.
I know there's going to be new menu items. They were working this summer, and there are some that are going to be on the menu, and I'm sure that I can have Dr. Cartwright get you some on her Friday Focus if you'd like. But I'm sure Kelly's going to gauge whether or not the students want it. Why would you keep something on the menu if the kids didn't like it?
We can have Mrs. Renard present a report about the menus because they have made a lot of changes this summer and they had a lot of professional development. So it would probably be a good idea for the board to hear about all that. Mm-hmm. And she can talk about, she has, I don't know if she's officially surveyed students, but she did a lot of work last year with the high school, and they had a very special day based on student feedback, a special menu. She's really into all of that kind of thing, so we'll ask her to present a report because I can't begin to recite everything she's done.
And I'm all for healthier lunches for the kids. My concern would be at the elementary, like the younger levels, they just stick to the same old staple foods. And if it's any different, you know how picky they are. I'd hate to see, for the sake of, experimentation or, kids going hungry and then us wasting a lot of things. So,
well, we are required to serve a certain proportion and number of servings of fruits and vegetables and protein. She can recite all of that well, way more than I can, way better than I can. So we can have her talk about that at some future meeting.
I was going to ask something else. I forget, but I'm good. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else?
I have a couple. There's all my advertisement again. Don't forget, coffee. Those are community members out there who would like to order from our life skills class. We offer coffee and tea starting very soon. School starts tomorrow, so if you want to place your order anytime soon and help them accomplish the trips that they make to the community for knowledge of all kinds of things, dining out, they went bowling, they do all kinds of things to be citizens of our community. So anyway, order coffee, tea, contact Mrs. Oswald at the high school for that. Opening day, the kids wore a hoot. I loved it. anywhere from the little tiny ones that were standing together on the stool to I think he was a fourth grader going into fifth that leaned on the podium, gave a speech, talked about how the earth needs teachers. It was fabulous. If he's not a politician, he wants to be a microbiologist, is that what, or marine biologist? I forget.
Marine biologist,
Anyway,
I think,
one
yeah.
of those.
They did refer to him as the mayor of Libe. So he's already started the political process there.
And they were all excellent, even up to Mary Alice for 12th grade. So anyway, that was great. The other thing I want to say is this is directed to, this came about from Dr. Houck's presentation tonight. This is to the board members. I had so many professional developments on process writing over the years, from Lucy Calkins up to, I can't even remember who all we went through anymore. But we always had a writing program. So where is it? And this is, I think, it's like when you go to the doctor with an illness, you go to this guy and this doctor says, well, I think you need to do this for this illness. But then you can go to another doctor and they prescribe something totally different, because medicine is a philosophy, part of it, not all of it, but some of it is. And that's the way education is. I mean, we know that children learn somewhat in this fashion, but it's a lot of knowledge, and how children take it in is a lot of a philosophy. And teachers will even comment and have discussions about this. Well, I think, it should be done this way, and I think it should be done this way. So this happens every time you get a new upper level administration. They come in with ideas on what we should do. And every time you change upper level administration, you change programs. That costs money, because you have to completely redo all the professional development that your staff has learned. And it could take, 5 years or something for all this to come through. Then your upper level leaves to go somewhere else. Somebody else comes in with their philosophy, and then you start all over again. So what I saw tonight, this is really, really good. And all the things that are being put in place here are fabulous, as long as we carry through with them. Now, as far as Dr. Houck is concerned, it will be carried through. But if we don't hold on to our upper level administration and they leave, she goes or Dr. Cartwright leaves, we start all over again. And then we start with a new, okay, so somebody comes in, yeah, this is our comprehensive plan. But in a few years, we rewrite the whole thing. We get all new professional development ideas. The teachers have all new manuals to read. And then they have to go about, you don't just go into a 2-hour, 3-hour, full day professional development and remember all that. You have to work through it, and you have to put it in place in your classroom, and it takes time. So, and we were told that before. We were told that we have such a turnover rate of upper administration in this district that has really affected what is happening here and what our scores are. So I just want everybody to keep in mind that what we have going right now is really, really good. And as long as this is accomplished, followed through, and hopefully completely accomplished, things are going to change. We're going to see some really good test scores coming.
Anybody else?
I just have one. I wanted to congratulate the band, the Dover Area High School Band, marching band, for a great summer of practice. I went to the preview show last Friday, and it was phenomenal. I can't wait to see how the show continues to evolve over the season, and I can't wait to go out and see them on Friday at the football game. So congratulations to all those students for their hard work, and the show looks fantastic. And of course, all the parents, volunteers, teachers as well. Everybody has done a magnificent job, so keep up the good work.
That has reminded me of another question I had in regards to the athletic pass. Are we sticking to that same process of the cards?
We are. The approval that the board made last fall, we started with the winter season. We started this summer with the fall season. We've sold about 14 passes as of yesterday morning. So it's not taking off hugely just yet, but I think it'll grow.
Can I make a recommendation on that? I know there was one night that it was an evening where you could go in to get the passes, and a number, myself included, of families that I've talked to were on vacation or worked and were not able to get in, and it's hard for them to get in during the day for the hours. So if there could be more opportunities for additional evening hours that parents could come in, or even if they could be available at the games to purchase, like have one of the booths sell the passes at any of the sporting games, I think would be advantageous for us.
Good idea. Thank you. I'm not a board member. May I say something
Yeah,
anyway?
Yeah.
We're not supposed to engage in a conversation during public comment, so I do want to respond to Nana, because I think this is good information for the public. I have a feeling you might have been looking at the Pennsylvania pre-K counts requirements.
Pulled up student-teacher ratio, and that's why.
Yes, I have experience with pre-K counts from my former district, and I know that those are requirements for a grant. The state does not require school districts to have a certain number of students in a classroom. There's a wide range of class sizes across the district, or excuse me, across the state. So I just wanted, I want everyone to hear that. And if you want to show me what you have and I can be proven wrong, I'm happy to be proven wrong also. I just think that that is pre-K count numbers. And if I could call you tomorrow, or you could come see me tomorrow, I'd love to talk with you about a lot of it. It might take a little while, so I'd rather not do that this evening if you don't mind. I have a lot of information for you. Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? I just had one thing I wanted to add. I wanted to echo Dr. Cartwright's comments and Mrs. Herman's comments about the opening day festivities. I want to first thank you for inviting the board to attend that. I think it's a great opportunity for us to engage with the staff that's out there. But I did want to say about those students that were up on that stage. They're standing on the big stage in the big auditorium in the big high school in front of 400 plus, staff members and teachers. You've got all these grown-ups sitting there staring at them, and the courage it took for them to get up there on that stage was amazing. I loved when the little first and second grade brother and sister were up there, and he had said something that made everybody chuckle and clap, and he immediately said, "Wait, we're not done yet," which made us laugh even harder then. So he was a great little guy, and they did a fantastic job. I think overall the morning was phenomenal. I think it was a great day, so it'd be exciting to see what you do next year as you plan for that one. So.
I already have it planned.
Okay. All right. So with that, our future meeting announcements, we do have our next board planning meeting on September 12th at 6:00 p.m. And as we decided tonight, our next board voting meeting will be September 19th, again at 6:00 p.m. So if there is no further business, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you.